What is the source of truth? Is it a scholar, a book, an opinion from an expert? Truth, when defined by human wisdom, will change over time, and according to whom you ask. But is this really truth? If something is genuinely true, it never changes. Truth is always circular. It always remains the same. In order to have a genuine truth, we must have a source that is eternal and unchangeable. The Bible presents us with truth that comes from a being who is eternal. He knows all things and he never changes. In Genesis chapter 6, the primary indictment upon the people of that generation was that they were doing what was right in their own eyes. This is referred to as situational ethics. Right and wrong, determined by personal opinion, situation, or desires of a modern society. The God of the Bible defines morality in absolute terms. In other words, truth that never changes. If truth can change, it's no longer true. This is the defect of thinking that our modern society finds itself in. People want to say and do what they want without interference. People want to justify their lifestyles by their own truth. When we examine the totality of history, no human society that seeks to live by situational ethics endures for very long. Eventually, corruption, perversion, and evil destroys people who live according to what is right in their own eyes. Only people who choose to live under fixed and enduring laws for moral behavior survive. Only when laws are established, immutable, and enforced can a society continue to exist and thrive. If we examine every nation of people from the historical record, all of those who allowed people to do what was right in their own eyes failed. Today, under the guise of personal rights and freedom, our modern society has set out to repeat errors of history by setting their own rules for moral behavior. In an effort to be seen as tolerant, the community we live in today is moving ever closer to allowing individuals to live as they please. We're beginning to see the negative effects of allowing reprobate lifestyles to force their perversity upon everyone else. But where do the rights of people who want this sort of freedom end? Well, you'll find it's at the place where the rights of other people begin. You can live as you please as long as you don't force me to participate in your chosen lifestyle. Genuine truth demands that individual freedoms are limited by intrusion into the rights of others. This was the basis of the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Freedom to live without interference from government, but limited by individual intrusion into the rights of others. For example, the First Amendment conveys the right to worship God or to not worship God, and the government shall not interfere with our worship or non-worship. Government must not tell us how to worship, but they also shall not interfere with our personal expression in the free exercise of our religion, or the speech that results from the exercise of our religion. The wall that some people see between religion and the U.S. government is asserted as preventing religion from being exercised in government. But this is not the clear reading of the First Amendment. As we read the First Amendment, it says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech. The clear and simple reading of this text is distinctly stated that government shall not establish a particular religion by an act of Congress, but it also may not prevent people from worship and the free exercise of their religion. The First Amendment does not limit people who work in government from exercising their faith, but that Congress, the legislative branch of American government, shall not enact any law that establishes a particular religion. If there's a wall between government and religion, it's to keep government out of religion, not to prevent people from exercising their religious expression while at work. This includes schools, universities, any other government-run or funded institution. In June of 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled by a 6-3 majority that the Constitution and the best of our traditions counsel mutual respect and tolerance, not censorship and suppression, for religious and non-religious views alike. This is what they found. Individuals who express their faith as government employees are not Congress making laws. They're just citizens given the right to worship God or not worship any God in any place they choose. The Supreme Court has determined that American citizens may always express their faith or non-faith in all places and at all times. Personal freedom, however, does not include the right to practice perversion. Human acts defined as contrary to nature or the natural order shall not be recognized as normal. This was the original intent. When the framers of the U.S. Constitution sought to define the limits of individual freedom, they used Blackstone's commentary on the law. The founders of our American democracy sought guidance for laws that would ensure the survivability of our nation. In May of 1787, the Constitutional Convention assembled in Philadelphia, and these men used a time-tested and reliable source to determine the laws for the new republic, Blackstone's commentary on the law. Blackstone, his commentary, written by William Blackstone, were the first organized compendium of English law that served as a model for all legal treatises to follow. These commentaries were especially popular in the American colonies and were instrumental in shaping the opinions of the founders of the United States in the years following its publication. Blackstone was cited by American lawyers in American courts for over 75 years and were the most influential legal treatises ever written. Blackstone stated that all human laws which provide a foundation for a nation to survive are based upon the laws of God. In Blackstone's commentary on the law, same-sex relationships were seen as so dangerous to human society that they were viewed as punishable by death. Thomas Jefferson agreed with this premise and authored a bill that called for dismemberment as the punishment for sodomy in the states of Virginia. The framers of the Constitution were well aware that homosexual and lesbian persons existed in their society. It was never the intention of the Constitution to grant special rights to these individuals. To the contrary, Thomas Jefferson, one of the most liberal among the founders, wrote and spoke in opposition to these persons as violators of the laws that govern human behavior. When the government of the United States was founded, homosexuality was considered a capital offense. In all of the original 13 colonies and later all 50 of the United States, sodomy was punishable by severe penalties, with several states invoking capital punishment in New York, Vermont, Connecticut, and South Carolina. The men who penned the Constitution and the Bill of Rights understood that the acceptance of same-sex behavior would erode and undermine the moral foundation of the nation. During that time, same-sex relationships were referred to as sodomy. These were not archaic and outdated views of human sexual interaction, designed to repress and inhibit, but time-tested, enduring laws that had ensured the survival of human society for millennia. The commentaries of Sir William Blackstone became the preeminent legal source of the Founding Fathers, using the 4th chapter called Of Offenses Against Persons of Individuals. The framers of the United States Constitution used Blackstone's legal guidelines to structure American law. Why did the framers believe that same-sex behavior warranted such harsh judgment? Behavior contrary to natural order, they said, degrades and erodes human society. The framers did not believe that future generations would likely adjust or eliminate this law. These wise and diligent men believed that in order for the United States to withstand all of the perils that caused ancient civilizations to fall, our laws must stand against sexual perversion and deviant sexual behavior. In short, the consequential truth and judgment of same-sex behavior are immutable and necessary for any surviving human society. Some view these ancient laws that were first revealed in the Old Testament as, again, archaic and irrelevant to an evolving society. But this goes back to our original question, what is truth? Is genuine truth immutable, or can it change when a future generation wants to live a deviant lifestyle? The framers of our Constitution said no. Like the laws of God, truth does not change. What worked at the beginning of our nation still works today, provided we keep the same rules for social behavior. People like myself who study ancient civilizations understand that acceptance of same-sex behavior and the normalizing of deviant sexual practices are the precursor to a nation at its end. God defined two sexes, male and female. He created all humans with the sex He determined. It doesn't matter how we feel, it matters what God said. People constantly change in their feelings and their views of their life, but God's law never changes. Truth requires all humans to remain under the definition God made for human sexuality. A modern society that is seeking inclusivity by allowing individuals to define their own sexuality eventually destroys that society. It's no longer enough to accept people in their same-sex relationships. Today, this community demands that their rights supersede the rights of all other people. If moral people resist or object to this onslaught of demands, we're labeled hateful and intolerant. Demands from those who wish to practice perverse behavior will never end until good people stand together and say no more. As we examined Blackstone, he said the following: "Thus, when the Supreme Being formed the universe and created matter out of nothing, He impressed certain principles upon that matter from which it can never depart, and without which it would cease to be. When He put that matter into motion, He established certain laws of motion to which all movable bodies must conform, and to descend from the greatest operations to the smallest. If we farther advance from mere inactive matter to vegetable and animal life," Blackstone says, "we shall find them still governed by laws, more numerous indeed, but equally fixed and invariable. Man," Blackstone continues, "is considered as a creature, must necessarily be subject to the laws of his Creator, for he is entirely a dependent being. A being independent of any other has no rule to pursue but such as he prescribes to himself. But a state of dependence will inevitably oblige the inferior to take the will of him on whom he depends as the rule of his conduct. This will of his Maker is called the law of nature, for as God, when He created matter and endued it with a principle of mobility, established certain rules for the perpetual direction of that motion, so that when He created man and endued him with free will to conduct himself in all parts of life, He laid down certain immutable laws of human nature whereby that free will is in some degree regulated and restrained, and gave him also the faculty of reason to discover the purport of these laws." So it was upon these words from Blackstone that the framers of our Declaration of Independence penned the following words: "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which, notice, the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them." A direct quote from Blackstone's commentary on the law. "A decent respect to the opinions of mankind," Blackstone says, "requires that they should declare the cause which impels them to the separation." This is added to our Declaration of Independence. The man who wrote our Constitution took guidance from Blackstone that defines all laws which govern the people of the United States as flowing out from the laws of God found in His Word, the Bible. In this law from God, throughout the entire 66 books of the Bible, same-sex relationships and the defining of gender are prescribed by God as immutable and unchangeable. God created male and female, and He ordained that all sexual relationships must be between a man and a woman under the covenant of marriage for life. This rule of law for human society has worked for thousands of years, but today it's under constant assault by people who want to live according to what's right in their own eyes. The only way that our nation and people will survive for millennia into the future is if we return to the law of God for human relationships and our relationships with God.